Today we are going to discuss on why does chemotherapy causes hair loss. According to FDA, 33% of chemotherapy patients experiences somewhat a little bit of hair loss after their therapy from 24 first weeks. Many chemotherapy patients experiences significant self-esteem loss due to losing hair. At the molecular level, cancer is fundamentally a disease of DNA damage and genetic mutations. For a normal cell to transform into a malignant cancer cell, a process called carcinogenesis, mutations typically occur in two major classes of genes: proto-oncogenes. These genes normally stimulate cell growth and division. When mutated or overexpressed, they become oncogenes, permanently turning on for the cell to divide. Tumor suppressor genes. These genes normally slow down cell division, repair DNA mistakes, or tell cells when to die. The most famous is the p53 gene. When these genes are inactivated by mutations, the cell loses its brakes. In cancer, the cells keeps on dividing uncontrollably. This mass of dividing cell is called a tumor, which can be of two types. Benign tumor, it is a localized tumor and non-cancerous in nature. Malignant tumor, they are cancerous and capable of invading nearby tissues and spreading to even distant organs. Chemotherapy is a cancer treatment process that works by killing cancer cells using chemicals or drugs. Chemotherapy kills cells that are in the process of dividing. It damages the genes inside the nucleus. Different chemotherapy drugs will do this in different ways. They might damage the control center of a malignant cell, interrupt the chemical processes involved in cell division, damage cells at the point of division. For example, microtubule targeted drugs which interfere with microtubule dynamics inhibit the growth of cells in mitosis and induce apoptotic cell death. The chemotherapy specialist may use a combination of different chemotherapy drugs to improve the effectiveness of the therapy. Chemotherapy primarily targets cells that divide rapidly. Fast-growing healthy cells can also become a collateral damage which includes bone marrow cells, hair follicles, our main focus of today's video, cell lining of the digestive tract, reproductive cells, skin and nail cells. Hair does not grow continuously. Each hair follicle acts as an independent mini organ and cycles through three phases. Since follicles are not synchronized, you normally shed about 50 to 100 hairs per day without noticeable thinning. The phases of hair follicle development. First, anagen. This is the active growth phase. Inside the follicle, hair matrix cells at the base of the follicle divide rapidly by mitosis. Duration: scalp 2 to 7 years, eyebrows 1 to 2 months, eyelashes 1 to 2 months. Next, catagen. Transition phase. This is a brief regression phase. What happens is cell division stops, the lower part of the follicle shrinks, the hair matrix disappears, Melanin production stops, the dermal papilla detaches from the hair bulb. Its duration is about 2 to 3 weeks. The next phase, telogen or the resting phase. The follicle becomes inactive during telogen. No new hair is produced. The old hair remains attached. The follicle prepares for a new growth cycle. Its duration is about 2 to 4 months. The last stage, exogen or shedding. Some texts describe this as the fourth phase. The old hair falls out and a new anagen hair begins growing underneath. Normal hair shedding occurs during this phase. Chemotherapy is designed to kill rapidly dividing cells. Because cancer cells divide uncontrollably, many chemotherapy drugs interfere with DNA replication, DNA repair, mitosis, microtubule functions, cell cycle progression. Unfortunately, the drugs cannot perfectly distinguish cancer cells from healthy, rapidly dividing cells. Hair matrix cells are among the fastest dividing healthy cells, making them vulnerable. What happens? Chemotherapy reaches the hair follicle through the bloodstream. Hair matrix cells stops dividing. Many undergo apoptosis, programmed cell death. The hair shaft is no longer properly produced. The weakened hair breaks close from the scalp. This type of hair loss is called as anagen effluvium. The timeline: hair loss usually begins 1 to 3 weeks after the first chemotherapy treatment. It becomes most noticeable by 2 to 4 weeks. Maximum hair loss often occurs after 1 to 2 months, depending on the chemotherapy regimen. Why scalp hair is most affected? Several biological reasons explains this. Most scalp hairs are in anagen. At any moment, 85 to 90% of scalp hairs are actively growing. Since chemotherapy mainly damages anagen's follicles, most scalp hairs are affected simultaneously. Scalp hair has the longest growth phase. Scalp hair grows for years, whereas eyebrows grows for weeks. Eyelashes grows for weeks. Arm and leg hair also have much shorter growth phases. A long anagen phase requires prolonged continuous cell division, increasing vulnerability. The loss of hair can be reduced by using scalp cooling caps. They cool the scalp before, during, and after the chemotherapy. They protect the hair follicles in two ways: reducing blood flow. Cooling causes blood vessels to constrict, so less drugs reaches the follicles. Second, slow follicle activity. Lower temperature reduces the metabolic activity of hair follicle cells, making them less vulnerable to chemo drugs. The success rates overall 30 to 80% depending on the chemotherapy regimen. There are, however, obviously some limitations, like it does not work for everyone, more effective with some chemo drugs than other. Not recommended for blood cancers, example leukemia. Chemotherapy generally does not permanently destroy the hair follicle stem cells located in the bulge region of the hair follicle. Once chemotherapy stops, hair follicle stem cells survive. They begin producing new hair matrix. New anagen growth phase starts. Hair gradually regrows. Timeline: initial regrowth takes 6 weeks after chemotherapy ends. Noticeable hair from 2 to 3 months. More complete regrowth from 6 to 12 months, though this varies from person to person. Researchers are rapidly inventing new methods to treat cancer effectively without causing much side effects. Some upcoming promising cancer therapies include targeted therapy. As the name suggests, targeted therapy blocks specific proteins or genetic mutations that cancer cells rely on to grow and divide. As they are more selective, they often cause less hair loss. Next, immunotherapy. Immunotherapy does not directly kill cancer cells. Instead, it activates body's immune system to recognize and destroy them. Since it does not target rapidly dividing cells, hair loss is uncommon. Next, antibody drug conjugates or ADCs. ADCs combine an antibody that finds cancer cells, a chemical linker, and a powerful chemotherapy drug. The antibody carries the drug directly to the cancer cells, reducing exposure of healthy tissues compared to conventional chemotherapy. CAR T cell therapy is a personalized treatment in which a patient's own T cells are genetically engineered to attack cancer cells. CAR T does not cause any hair loss on its own. However, patients often receive lymphodepleting chemotherapy before CAR T, which can cause temporary hair loss. Hair loss has been one of the most visible side effects of cancer treatment, but cancer therapy is rapidly changing and not far in distant future we would have a cancer treatment that will not only be more effective but also less disruptive to patient's life. Hope you liked the video. Thank you for watching.